Yes. This is me, Hudson George. I'm just doing a little short video, you know. The video is about social media. Now, social media is the new revolution medium for voiceless people. Now, you don't have to be a credit journalist to use social media to give your views and opinion or to cover a story. Now, history is very important from a Grenadian point of view. When I was a youth and a Jewel supporter, I was supporting the Jewel movement as a youth for change, as we have youths today who for change. The person who used to cover all the Jewel movement meeting until it turned NGM and all them things was Alistair Hughes, a white Grenadian, a local white Grenadian. He was a historian, I think. But when he was covering the NGM meeting and the Jewel movement meeting, he was not a accredited journalist. But the news used to be broadcast on radio and television. Everybody used to listen to Alistair Hughes for latest updates on what is happening in Grenada. So when people are saying now that you have to be accredited to be a journalist, it's not true. Nah, because Alistair Hughes became a journalist after the US invasion. And he was also offered to be some honorary from the Queen Elizabeth, and he refused it. And he was a white Grenadian, he refused to take things like OB and MB from the Queen. Because Queen Elizabeth was the Queen of England, and when they nominated him, he refused. Right? So, social media, Alistair Hughes was before social media. But he did what he did. And he was not an accredited journalist when he was doing it. So, we live in an age of media. People don't go on social media because not everybody uses social media for profit. Some people use it accidentally, you know. Some people have something to say and they go social media. And perhaps what they say, people like it. So they stay. Some people again used to use print journalism. For example, in my case, I used to use print journalism. I still love it. I love print journalism. But now it's social media, you know, so some people end up on Facebook, YouTube, and different media. What is it? You have a different medium, you know? Because this is the new generation, new stuff. So, and in Grenada, politics is a big thing because Grenadians are very political people. Sometimes the politics we argue don't really make sense. I remember in politics they talk about the silly season. Silly season is like festive season, Christmas time, different time. Silly season, when on holiday people have good time. Now, it is said that When it's election in Grenada, it's the silly season, and people curse their neighbor, they tell people dirty things. Right? Now the silly season's gone more than the silly season in Grenada, it become a culture where people curse people for politics. For example, a guy who is an engineer in Grenada, right? Rupert what? Blash. Rupert Blash called me a political idiot. Imagine this guy is an engineer, but he called me a political idiot because of certain things I said in a video, not disrespecting, but in opposed to some of the things the government is doing. But my comment was related to the jab issue. So, if I was a political idiot, how come you have more jab on the street? So where is our social scientist? Where is our sociologist? All we hearing is lawyers, law, politician. Lawyers in Grenada want to be in charge of culture. They want to be the magistrate. They want to be the judge. They want to be the prosecutor. They want to be everything. Because what? They study law and they have a notary to stamp? No. A system don't work that way. You have this different discipline of education. And in addition to that, beside the different discipline of education, there are a lot of educated people in different fields in Grenada. Some people scared to talk, especially rural Grenadians. They're scared to talk. I'm a rural Grenadian. I don't scared to talk. I give my opinion. I don't curse people. Now, Alistair Hughes, going back to Alistair Hughes, was a white Grenadian. And in days of police brutality, he used to be broadcasting when things happen. He used to have a camera. It's after we get to know he didn't study journalism as yet, but he was effective. So, whether male or female political activists in Grenada, whether they're NNP or NDC, if they're effective and they're not they didn't study journalism, they have a right to do what they're doing. Because what I observe in Grenada, a lot of journalists, accredited journalists, they are mercenaries, or they've been employed by political parties, or by persons who they admire in politics. So if you have other people doing other media stunt, there are no problem with that. That is how the world come today. It's just like I see a lot of guys on Facebook talking about women this and women that, and men can control women again. And when you tell them the world changed, they can't accept it. It's just as how people think you have to be accredited to be a journalist. That's craziness. If you have information, you could be a journalist and you don't know nothing. All you know is how to use the W, when, where, why, and you know to use how, and so you know the W's and the H in journalism, but you don't know history. Because if you ask a lot of these young journalists today, and even those bloggers, was Alistair Hughes a journalist when he was covering Jewel movement events up to even American invasion? No, he was not a journalist yet. And when women come forward, oh, you trying to control a woman today and you can't control her. Is technology changed the world? Because women are in society and you can define a role a woman has to play. A woman is a person, a human being. Your first teacher is a woman. You understand? Because it is proven that more women become educated, her children are going to be smarter. So we have a lot of things to grow up in the Caribbean with. You see, the Caribbean is a slave society. And we should learn by now that we are a slave society. I live in North America and I watch all other ethnic groups react with each other. And Caribbean people, you could tell that we're from a slave society. And we have a slave mentality still. You understand? The way we react, the way how we try to insult one another to feel good is a negative complex we have, you know. When we disrespecting one another, you do it to feel good because slavery makes us how we are today. And a lot of us don't emancipate ourselves from it. So my little life today is to say that you don't have to study journalism to be effective on social media. Once you have facts and you know the history, you're good. If you want to go print, you could go print. I'm one of the late person who will go into Facebook, you know. I'm not into Facebook long. And I in Facebook not to make money, but I kind of cover a lot of attention. And Facebook changed my page to a content creator. I dabble in things like culture, like going around reading poetry. And one day, a producer from a Caribbean island invited me to a studio to make music. But I didn't know the business of music. But even though I didn't know, I did it. And then after, it was eye-opening for me. And I went to a Grenadian producer after and make music. And it was good for me. And I'm not stopping make music. Music is good for me. I could take anything and make music. That don't mean I'm a singer. But I know how to write. So I could take poetry and make music. Yeah. Poems and make good music. I could turn it into soca, calypso, reggae, or world beat music. Right? And I could also do a live on things that I know about. And a lot of journalists in Grenada, they can't do it because they don't know history. They don't know history because to say the journalists in Grenada should be the first one to say what I'm saying now. That you don't have to be accredited journalist to cover top stories. Because Alistair Hughes was not accredited journalist when he was effective more than even journalists in Grenada. Right? Because we had Jerry Romaine working for the government. Lou Smith was a journalist. Lou Smith was more interested in proper English and to operate from a standard. And even Alistair Hughes was a white Grenadian. Even though he was a white Grenadian, he used to use a lot of French Creole words. Right? He never rejected the Grenadian English, even though he could speak proper English. You understand? If you go back into archive, as I said, a lot of journalists in Grenada are not doing their work. I learned a lot from Alistair Hughes with the Creole words too. Imagine he was a white Grenadian. And when you have men as Pele Dabo and them correcting people about good grammar in Grenada. Lou Smith was a nice guy. I used to argue with him on Facebook and we become good friends before he died. Because he come to understand that even though he is one of Grenada's best journalists, I was able to convince him that Grenadians have a way to speak. Right? You understand? So, all who on social media doing the thing, Whether the NNP or the NDC or they just doesn't do anything in the media. They all have a right to do it. They all have a right. So there is nothing called accredited. We are living in a revolution, in a revolution of media change, and people do their own thing. Anyway, this is me, Hudson George. I go on, till I come again.